Welcome guys. This video will focus on what is the thyroid gland. Well, it is a large butterfly-shaped gland that lies anterior to the windpipe-trachea, just inferior to the voice box or larynx. In a normal adult, it weighs about 20 to 40 grams. The central region, a narrow band of tissue called the isthmus, connects the two large wing-shaped left and right lobes of the gland that forms the butterfly shape. Each of the thyroid lobes is embedded with parathyroid glands, primarily on their posterior surfaces. The hypothalamus synthesizes and secretes a hormone called thyrotropin-releasing hormone, or TRH. That is transported by the hypothalamic-hypophyseal portal system to the anterior pituitary and secrete thyroid-stimulating hormone that acts on the thyroid gland to release thyroid hormones. If we zoom in here, you will see that the thyroid gland is covered by a capsule of connective tissue with secretory parts called follicles. The wall of each follicle is made up primarily of epithelial cells called follicular cells. The thyroid's lumen, or central cavity, is filled with clear, amber-coloured, thick fluid called colloid, which stores hormones produced by the follicles. These follicles produce two main thyroid hormones: triiodothyronine, or T3, which forms 9 to 10% of total secretion, and tetraiodothyronine, or T4, also called thyroxine, that forms about 90% of the total secretion. Both these hormones are iodine-containing derivatives of the amino acid tyrosine. The numbers 3 and 4 are referring to the number of iodine atoms in a molecule of each hormone. T4 is usually considered to be the inactive form, while T3 is the active form. It is 5 times as potent as T4. So, T4 is converted into T3 by the cells in various organs of the body, with the help of an enzyme 5-deiodinase. Well, these hormones require iodine, or iodide for their production. Where does the iodine come from? Yes, iodine is obtained from nutrition, which is then transformed into iodide ions in the body. This iodide is taken up by these follicular cells through sodium iodide symporter, or NIS for short. Now, iodide can easily diffuse from follicular cells into the colloid. A glycoprotein called thyroglobulin is released into the colloid by the follicle cells. Iodide binds with this thyroglobulin to form monoiodotyrosine, or NIT for short. If two iodides bind with thyroglobulin, then diiodotyrosine, or DIT for short, is formed. Now, when two diiodotyrosine combine, they form tetraiodothyronine, or T4, or what we call thyroxine. That is a thyroid hormone in the presence of thyroid peroxidase. While, on the other hand, when a monoiodotyrosine binds with a diiodotyrosine, it generates a triiodothyronine, or T3, the active form of thyroid hormone. This also takes place in the presence of thyroid peroxidase. Now, majority of thyroid hormones molecules, when enter blood circulation, bind to the proteins called thyroid-binding globulins, while rest of the molecules either bind to the thyroid-binding prealbumin, also referred to as transthyretin, or to albumin itself. Thyroid hormones enter target cells, binding to intracellular receptors in the cell's nucleus. And what they do there is that They control the transcription of messenger RNA needed for protein synthesis. Now that you are familiar with the secretion of thyroid hormones, let me ask you, what are the major functions of thyroid hormone? Well, it is required for brain maturation, bone growth, has beta-adrenergic effects. That includes an increase in beta-1 receptors in the heart, which leads to increased cardiac output, heart rate, stroke volume, and contractility. Basal metabolic rate. Well, metabolic rate is increased via sodium-potassium ATPase, which leads to more oxygen consumption, respiratory rate, and body temperature. Affects blood sugar, as it increases glycogenolysis, which is the conversion of glycogen to glucose, and gluconeogenesis, which is the formation of glucose from non-carbohydrate precursors, breakdown of lipids by increasing lipolysis. Also stimulates surfactant synthesis in babies. All these functions can be memorized by the mnemonic 7 Bs, because all these 7 functions have their initial letter, B. Well, thyroid hormones regulate their own secretion through negative feedback control by inhibiting the release of thyrotropin-releasing hormone, or TRH, from the hypothalamus, and thyroid-stimulating hormone, or TSH, from the anterior pituitary. Now, let's get back to a closer view of the thyroid gland. Well, you can see here some cells between the thyroid follicles. These cells are referred to as parafollicular cells, also called C cells. These cells secrete another important hormone called calcitonin, which is a polypeptide hormone. Well, calcitonin is secreted in response to rising blood calcium levels. It inhibits osteoclastic activity, thus inhibiting bone degradation, increases osteoblastic activity, thus increasing bone formation, decreases absorption of calcium in the intestines, thus increasing its excretion, and also acts on kidney and increases its excretion in urine. That concludes our discussion of the thyroid gland and its hormones. So, now you can see how crucial this gland is. An underactive thyroid leads to a condition called hypothyroidism, while hyperthyroidism is a disorder brought on by a thyroid that is overactive. You can find their comprehensive videos on sqadia.com.
Explore our extensive library of over 1,800 video lectures to learn about a wide range of topics. Only on sqadia.com.